The weird thing about hearing the word divorce over and over again is that eventually it stops sounding scary. The first time Sabrina said it, I felt like somebody dropped an engine block directly onto my chest. The fifth time, it felt like getting punched in the stomach. By the 20th, it sounded like a smoke alarm with dying batteries. Annoying, predictable, impossible to ignore, but no longer terrifying. That probably sounds horrible coming from a married man, but if you've spent enough years hearing your relationship used as a negotiation tactic, eventually your nervous system just clocks out and says, "Oh, this speech again. Cool, wonderful, fantastic." Maybe this time she'll also threaten to move to her sister's house for dramatic effect. At some point, divorce stopped feeling like the end of my life and started feeling like silence after an alarm that never shut off. And the worst part? I really loved my wife. Still do, in some weird scar tissue kind of way. Sabrina walked into my life 14 years ago, wearing ripped jeans, combat boots, and the confidence of a woman who had absolutely never lost an argument in her entire life. She insulted me 30 seconds after meeting me, not aggressively, professionally. I was helping Oliver move apartments, carrying a couch up 3 flights of stairs, because apparently friendship means helping grown men relocate furniture they absolutely should have paid movers to handle. Sabrina was Oliver's cousin's friend or co-worker or yoga cult recruiter or something. I honestly wasn't paying attention because the couch had just removed 3 years from my spine. I remember setting it down and hearing, "You're lifting with your back. That's either brave or medically fascinating." I looked over and saw this gorgeous brunette holding iced coffee like she owned the patent for confidence. I laughed. Huge mistake. That smile hit me like whiskey on an empty stomach. "Thanks," I said. "I've always wanted to die impressing strangers." "Don't worry," she replied. "You don't look impressive enough for that." Oliver nearly fell down the stairs laughing. That was Sabrina. Sharp, funny, fast. The kind of woman who walked into a room and somehow became the center of gravity without even trying. And honestly, I liked that about her, because back then, her fire felt warm. For a long time we worked, really worked. I was steady. She was chaos. I liked routines. She liked spontaneity. I thought weekends were for relaxing. My wife once drove us 3 hours into the mountains because she saw an Instagram reel about healing waterfalls. The waterfall looked like somebody spilled tap water down a rock. Still had fun though. That's the annoying thing about loving someone. The good memories refuse to die even after the relationship starts coughing blood. Early marriage was easy, not perfect, but real. We'd cook together, fight over dumb movies, stay up too late talking, make fun of couples on house renovation shows. Sabrina used to sit on the garage floor while I worked on my motorcycle and pretend she understood anything I was saying. That sound is the carburetor. You don't know what that means, do you? Not even slightly. Then why are you nodding? Because you look happy talking about it. That's the version of her people never understand later, because nobody becomes the villain all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, like water damage inside walls. At first it's tiny things, hairline cracks, little comments during arguments. The first time she used the word divorce against me, we were arguing about vacation plans. I wanted to visit Colorado with Oliver for a motorcycle trip. Sabrina wanted Italy. Now before anybody starts sharpening pitchforks, no, I wasn't choosing motorcycles over my marriage. Apparently this was deeply offensive to the institution of marriage. You always make time for everyone except your wife. That's not true. You already look happier talking about this trip than you did during dinner. That's because dinner was a 40-minute discussion about backsplash tiles. They matter. They're wall stickers for kitchens, Sabrina. They are not wall stickers. I made the fatal mistake of smiling. Wrong move. Her eyes narrowed immediately. You know what? Maybe married life just doesn't suit you. And there it was. The first little grenade. Back then, it hit hard. Because when someone you love casually suggests the marriage itself may be failing, your brain doesn't go, "Ah yes, Tactical emotional escalation. No. Your brain goes, oh God, everything is on fire. So I did what most decent husbands probably do. I tried to fix it. I shortened the trip, planned a weekend getaway for us afterward, reassured her, talked it through calmly. And to Sabrina's credit, she usually cooled off fast. That's what made it confusing, because after every blow-up, she'd become normal again. Funny, affectionate, warm. Over time, though, the pattern became impossible to miss. Every serious disagreement somehow ended near the cliff edge of our marriage. Money discussions, schedules, boundaries, family stuff. Anything that didn't go her way suddenly became, maybe we rushed into marriage. Maybe we're too different. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. And listen, I'm not some emotionless caveman. I understand frustration. People say dramatic things during fights. But there's a difference between emotional reactions and repeatedly pulling the emergency exit lever every time a conversation becomes uncomfortable. At first, I genuinely believed she didn't mean it. Then eventually, I realized something worse. She meant it enough for it to work. That's the dangerous part. When a tactic succeeds, people keep using it. And it worked on me for years. Not because I was weak, not because I was spineless. Because I love my wife and didn't want every disagreement turning into a full-blown disaster. People online love pretending relationships are simple. Oh bro, if my wife said that once I'd leave immediately. Sure you would, Commander Testosterone. Real life is messier. Sometimes the person hurting you is also the person making coffee for you in the morning. Sometimes they kiss you goodbye before work and then emotionally carpet bomb you over dinner. Human beings are complicated. Sabrina wasn't evil. She just genuinely believed pressure created effort. If a husband feared losing his wife, he'd fight harder for the relationship. That was her logic. The problem was, eventually fear stops motivating people. Eventually, it exhausts them. One night, Oliver came over while I was working in the garage. He leaned against the workbench watching me tune the bike. You look tired. I am tired. That marriage tired or regular tired? Those are different categories now? Oh, absolutely, he said. Marriage tired means your soul looks like expired yogurt. I laughed, then kept tightening a bolt. He watched me for a second. You know what your problem is? Financially or emotionally? You think staying calm fixes emotional manipulation. I stopped moving, because that word irritated me instantly. Manipulation. People throw it around too easily now. Somebody forgets your birthday? Manipulation. Your girlfriend steals your fries? Gaslighting. Your dog ignores you? Narcissism. I sighed. She doesn't mean it like that. Oliver nodded slowly. Maybe. He grabbed a beer from the garage fridge. But people repeat what works. That sentence followed me around for months, because once you notice a pattern, you can't unsee it. And suddenly I noticed everything. Every threat appeared the moment I stopped agreeing. One argument started because I said maybe we shouldn't spend $12,000 redoing a perfectly functional living room. Apparently this was deeply selfish behavior on my part. We can afford it. Technically, yes. So what's the problem? The problem is, our couch still functions without needing a second mortgage. You always do this. Do what? Make me feel ridiculous for wanting nice things. I literally said we could do it later. She crossed her arms. Sometimes I feel like I'm dragging you through adulthood. Now look, I'm a patient man. But there are only so many times you can hear variations of, you're immature, you're disappointing, you're failing me, before something inside you quietly starts packing bags. I looked at her calmly. We can disagree without threatening the marriage every time. I didn't threaten anything. You implied it? You always exaggerate. That one nearly made me laugh, because apparently saying, maybe this marriage isn't working, was now considered subtle poetry instead of a threat. Still, I stayed calm. That became my role. Cole the reasonable, Cole the stable. And for a while, I wore that role proudly. Until one day I realized something horrifying. I was spending more energy preventing arguments than actually enjoying my marriage. You stopped talking as much. You stopped volunteering stories about your day. You stop bringing things up because you subconsciously calculate whether the conversation might somehow become exhausting. You become emotionally efficient. Minimal exposure, minimal conflict, minimal damage. Sabrina noticed eventually. One night she looked at me across dinner and said, "You've been distant lately." I almost answered, because every disagreement felt like defending one's rights in court. Instead I said, "Just tired." She nodded slowly. I think she believed she'd finally trained me not to argue. What she didn't realize was much worse. I wasn't becoming more obedient. I was becoming emotionally done. And there's a terrifying difference between the two. The weird thing about emotional exhaustion is that it doesn't arrive dramatically. It's smaller than that. It's realizing you feel more relaxed sitting alone in your garage with a wrench in your hand than sitting in your own living room. It's sitting in a grocery store parking lot for 10 extra minutes, just enjoying the silence like some emotionally damaged raccoon hiding from responsibility. The shift happened so slowly, I almost missed it. One evening I got home from work and found Sabrina sitting at the kitchen island scrolling through her phone with the expression she usually reserved for either online shopping or preparing a legal case against me over something microscopic. "Hey," I said. "Hey." I kissed her forehead and opened the fridge. "You forgot we're having dinner with my sister tomorrow." I paused. "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "No, I remembered. I just didn't react dramatically enough." She narrowed her eyes. "You've been weird lately." I grabbed a water bottle. "I'm not weird, I'm tired." "You're distant." "I've just been busy." "You barely talk anymore." I almost laughed at that. Because that's the funny thing about repeatedly escalating every disagreement. Eventually, the other person starts reducing opportunities for disagreement. Not consciously at first, you stop bringing up little opinions, stop debating, stop engaging, less friction, less stress. Except Sabrina interpreted my calmness as emotional withdrawal instead of emotional fatigue. Which, honestly, fair enough. I sat across from her. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. The truth is, every conversation feels like it might randomly become exhausting." Her face hardened immediately. "Oh my God, here we go. I'm not attacking you. You always make me the bad guy lately. I literally just explained how I feel. You act like I'm impossible to talk to." I looked at her for a few seconds, then said carefully, "Sometimes you are." Silence. Sabrina stared at me like I'd just insulted her entire bloodline. Then came the sigh. "You know," she muttered, "sometimes I really wonder what happened to us. Maybe constantly treating disagreements like marriage-ending events didn't exactly help." "You seriously think this is all my fault?" "I didn't say that." "You implied it." "I'm saying I'm exhausted, Sabrina." "You think you're exhausted?" she snapped. "Try being married to somebody emotionally unavailable." I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes your brain short-circuits when hypocrisy gets too aggressive. Her eyes widened instantly. "Oh wow, so now I'm a joke?" "No," I said calmly. "But apparently I'm the villain because I got tired of every disagreement turning into relationship commentary." "I do not do that every time." "You absolutely do." "I do not." "You threatened divorce during an argument about patio furniture." "That is not what happened." "You literally said maybe we wanted different lives because I didn't like the outdoor lamp you picked." "It wasn't about the lamp." Sabrina crossed her arms tightly. "You know what your issue is?" "Probably several things." "You've gotten selfish." I stared at her. Honestly, that one annoyed me more than the divorce comments. Because I spent years compromising. Years. I shortened trips, canceled plans, played peacemaker constantly, because I loved her. But eventually you reach a point where compromise starts feeling suspiciously one-directional. And once you notice that, you can't unnotice it. I'm selfish? Yes. How? You always prioritize your hobbies. My hobbies? Your garage, your bike, your little projects. That's called having a life outside my marriage. You spend more time in the garage than with me. That's because the garage doesn't threaten to leave me during conversations about furniture. Oops. The line slipped out before I could stop it. Sabrina froze. And honestly, I expected screaming. Instead, she just looked hurt. Actually hurt. Which made me instantly regret the delivery, even if I didn't regret the truth. That's really unfair, she said quietly. I'm not trying to hurt you. Well, congratulations anyway. Then she stood up and walked upstairs. And I sat alone in the kitchen staring at a bowl of decorative fruit nobody had eaten in 2 years. The next morning, Sabrina acted normal again. Not fake normal, real normal. Coffee, music in the kitchen, kissing my cheek before work. That used to confuse me. Now it just made me tired. Because emotional whiplash eventually becomes its own kind of routine. And the scary part? I think she genuinely believed everything was fine as long as the argument itself ended. Meanwhile, I was slowly becoming a guest in my own marriage. About a week later, Sabrina invited guests to dinner. It was one of those casual adult evenings where everybody claims they'll only stay 2 hours, and then suddenly it's midnight, and someone's explaining cryptocurrency with the confidence of a man who absolutely lost money in cryptocurrency. Oliver came. His wife Nina came. Sabrina's sister Rachel showed up late carrying wine like she was delivering emergency medical supplies. By 7:30, our dining room looked like a low-budget therapy session with appetizers. Honestly, the night started great. Music playing, windows open, steaks on the grill. Everybody relaxed. Sabrina thrived in those environments. That was one of her superpowers. Put her around people and suddenly she became magnetic. I used to love watching her host. She moved through conversations like she was conducting an orchestra. Meanwhile, I was outside fighting for my life with a grill that apparently had personal issues. Dinner moved inside after sunset. Wine bottles multiplied. Voices got louder. Somebody put on terrible early 2000s music. At one point, Nina started telling the story of how Oliver accidentally glued his own fingers together, trying to fix one tiny thing in their bathroom. Sabrina laughed so hard she leaned against my shoulder. And for a second, everything felt normal again. Warm, comfortable, dangerously easy to believe in. Then Rachel asked me the question, "So when are you finally upgrading the bike?" I shrugged, thinking about it. Sabrina immediately smirked into her wine glass. "Please don't encourage him." Oliver grinned. "Oh no, here we go." Sabrina pointed her fork at me. "Cole still thinks he's 25 every time he touches that motorcycle." Everybody laughed lightly. I smiled. 36 is basically 25 with lower back pain. "That motorcycle is your version of a midlife crisis," Sabrina continued. I took a sip of bourbon. "At least mine gets good mileage." Rachel snorted, laughing. Sabrina shook her head dramatically. "One day I'm donating that thing to a museum for aging men in leather jackets." I smiled lightly. "You keep threatening my motorcycle more than our marriage lately." The table laughed again. Sabrina smiled too. But I saw it. That tiny flash in her eyes. The one that appeared whenever I stopped playing the harmless clown version of myself. Nina tried steering the conversation elsewhere. "So, are you guys still planning that Colorado trip?" "Probably in August," I answered. Sabrina made a face immediately. "There it is." "What?" "The annual migration of emotionally unavailable middle-aged bikers." Oliver nearly choked on his drink, laughing. "Okay, that one was good," he admitted. I laughed too. The conversation moved on after that. Vacation stories, work gossip, Rachel ranting about a coworker. Normal night. Still, I noticed something uncomfortable. Whenever I spoke, Sabrina increasingly corrected, reframed, or translated what I meant. By 11:30, people started leaving. Rachel hugged Sabrina. Nina stole leftover cheesecake. Oliver stayed behind, helping me carry empty bottles to the kitchen. Sabrina went upstairs to shower while Oliver and I stood alone near the sink. The house finally quiet. He tossed a bottle into the recycling bin. "You okay?" "I'm fine." Oliver leaned against the counter. "I think you've spent so many years trying to keep every disagreement from escalating that now you barely participate at all." I looked away. "That's dramatic." "No," Oliver replied quietly. "What's dramatic is your wife casually joking about donating your motorcycle while you laugh like a hostage reading a prepared statement." I burst out laughing despite myself. "Okay, first of all, that analogy is insane. But accurate." "No, it isn't." "Cole." I rubbed my jaw tiredly. "She's joking." "I know she's joking." "Then what's the issue?" Oliver sighed. "The issue isn't the joke. It's that she talks about the things you care about like they're flaws she's tolerating." That sat heavily in my chest, because deep down, I'd already started feeling it myself. I leaned against the counter. "She thinks I'm immature." "No," Oliver said. "I think she thinks she can pressure you into becoming whatever version of you makes her feel safest." I frowned. That sounds way too deep for a guy who once superglued himself to a sink. "I contain multitudes." I laughed quietly again. Then the laughter faded, and before I could stop myself, the truth slipped out. "I'm tired of every disagreement feeling like some test I'm supposed to pass." Oliver nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting to hear me finally say it out loud. And for the first time in a very long time, I realized I actually meant it. A few weeks after the dinner, I got out of work early because our office lost power. Half the building went dark. Karen from accounting screamed like civilization itself was collapsing, and 20 grown adults suddenly wandered around carrying dead laptops with the survival instincts of confused deer. So around 3 in the afternoon, my boss clapped his hands and said, "Well, unless any of you know how to fight electricity, go home." Best meeting I'd attended all year. I remember driving home in a surprisingly good mood. Windows down, warm weather, no traffic. I even stopped for coffee on the way back because I figured Sabrina would still be at work for another couple hours. The universe, however, had prepared a different recreational activity for me. When I pulled into the driveway, the garage door was open. That immediately felt weird. Sabrina never opened the garage unless she needed holiday decorations. I grabbed my coffee and walked inside. And there she was, standing beside my motorcycle, phone in hand, taking pictures. At first, my brain didn't process it as danger, just confusion. Then I noticed the angles: side profile, close-up of the tank, rear suspension, mileage shot, not random pictures, selling pictures. A cold feeling slid quietly into my stomach. Sabrina looked up when she heard me. "Oh, you're home early." I stared at her, then at the bike, then at her phone. "What are you doing?" She stayed calm, casual even. Like what she was doing made perfect sense. "I'm listing the bike." "Your what?" She turned the phone toward me. "Marketplace listing. Photos uploaded. Description written. Price included. My motorcycle. For sale." I just stared at the screen. "You're listing my motorcycle?" "Yes." I blinked slowly. "Without talking to me?" Sabrina sighed like I was focusing on the wrong detail. "Cole, somebody in this marriage has to start making adult decisions." That sentence hit harder than yelling would have, because it wasn't emotional. It was dismissive, like she'd already decided my opinion ranked somewhere below decorative furniture. I set the coffee down carefully before I accidentally launched it through drywall. "Take the listing down. We need to talk about this first." "No," I said calmly. "You needed to talk about this first." She crossed her arms immediately. "There it is." "What does that mean?" "That defensive tone you get whenever somebody points out you're clinging to teenage hobbies." I stared at her for a second, then actually looked around the garage, and suddenly something became painfully clear. She didn't just dislike the motorcycle anymore. She disliked what it represented. Freedom, independence. A part of me she couldn't reorganize. "It's a motorcycle, Sabrina." "No," she snapped. "It's a 40-year-old man cosplay starter kit." "I'm 36. "Exactly my point," she kept going. "You spend thousands on this thing. You disappear into the garage for hours. You ride around with Oliver pretending you're still young." I nodded slowly. "Okay, so this isn't about money? It's about priorities." "No," I said quietly. "It's about control." That changed the air immediately. Her eyes sharpened. "Oh, please." "No, seriously. You already decided this for me. Because you refuse to grow up." I walked closer to the bike, ran my hand lightly across the handlebars. "You don't get to sell my property because you suddenly decided my personality embarrasses you." Her jaw tightened. "At some point, you need to decide whether you want to be a husband or a teenager with a motorcycle." That one finally did it. Not explosive anger, not screaming, just this deep, exhausted clarity. Because I suddenly realized we weren't discussing a vehicle anymore. We were discussing whether she still respected me as a person separate from her expectations. And honestly, I didn't think she did. I looked at her calmly. "This stopped being about the motorcycle the moment you decided you could make choices for me without even asking. I was trying to help us. No, you were trying to manage me. That is not fair. What's not fair is coming home and finding out my wife put my bike online like I'd already been replaced by a sensible man named Greg. That's dramatic. You listed it, Sabrina. Because somebody has to think long-term." "I do think long-term." "No, you think emotionally." I blinked, then pointed at the motorcycle. "The machine I rebuilt over 6 years is emotional?" "Yes." "You're impossible." "No," I said quietly. "I'm just not automatically agreeing with you anymore." Silence. And right there, I saw it happen. That tiny flicker in her face whenever control started slipping away. Her breathing changed slightly. Her posture stiffened. The conversation was no longer going according to the script she expected. Because usually by now, I'd be calming things down, explaining myself, softening the edges, trying to reconnect. Instead, I just stood there, calm, and that seemed to frustrate her even more. "You know what?" she snapped. "Maybe I'm tired of being the only adult in this marriage." I almost smiled. "You don't actually hear yourself anymore, do you?" Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "You keep talking like I'm some irresponsible idiot because I own a motorcycle. You care more about that bike than this family sometimes?" That one genuinely pissed me off. "You don't get to say that." "Why not?" "Because I've spent years compromising for this relationship." Oh my God, here comes the martyr speech. "No," I said sharply. "Here comes the reality speech. You threaten divorce every time you don't get your way, Sabrina." Her face instantly froze. "We are not doing this right now. We are absolutely doing this right now. You're unbelievable." "No," I replied. "What's unbelievable is that you thought you could sell my motorcycle without even asking me first. I was trying to push you to finally act your age. And who decided you get to define that?" "Fine," she said. "Then maybe I should just file for divorce." And there it was, the sentence that used to hit me like a car crash. The sentence that used to instantly trigger panic and repair mode and emotional negotiations. Except this time, nothing happened. No fear, no rush, no desperation, just exhaustion. Pure, unbearable exhaustion. I looked at her, the listing, the garage, the motorcycle, the woman who no longer even thought my opinion deserved consultation, and something inside me quietly unlocked. Not anger. Acceptance. I nodded once, then said the one word she never expected to hear. "Yes, I think so too." Sabrina stared at me, like her brain physically failed to process the response. "What?" I held her gaze. "You said maybe you should file for divorce." Another small nod. "Okay." Sabrina kept staring at me. You're seriously saying okay right now? You brought it up. That's not the point. No, I said quietly. That actually is the point. Her face hardened again. This is exactly what I mean. You shut down instead of fighting for us. I've been fighting for us for years, Sabrina. Oh, please. No, seriously. I've spent years calming things down every time you escalated an argument. You know what? She snapped. Forget it. I'd love to. She blinked. I think that line shocked both of us. Not because it was cruel, because it was true. For the first time in years, I was too exhausted to smooth things over. Sabrina grabbed her phone angrily. Fine. Then she deleted the listing right in front of me. She turned toward the garage door. You're acting like I betrayed you. I stared at her. You tried to sell my motorcycle without asking me. I just want you to act like a husband. I am a husband. She looked at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I can't do this right now. She walked inside the house, and I stayed alone in the garage. That night was strangely normal, which somehow made everything worse. Sabrina made pasta. We watched half a movie. Nobody yelled. But the air felt different, like something invisible had finally cracked. Around 10, she muted the TV suddenly. So that's it? I looked over. What's it? You're just giving up? I let out a slow breath. No, I said calmly. I'm just tired of being threatened every time we disagree. I was angry. You're always angry when you say it. That doesn't mean I want it. I looked at her for a second. Then stop saying it. She crossed her arms. You know couples say things during fights. Sure. You're acting like I destroyed the marriage. No, I replied quietly. I think we slowly did that together. That seemed to hit her harder than blame would have. She looked away first. I didn't think you'd actually say yes. The next morning, I called a lawyer during lunch break. I just sat in my truck eating terrible gas station chicken wraps while a man named Dennis explained separation paperwork to me. Honestly, Dennis sounded bored enough to discuss divorce and lawn maintenance with identical emotional investment. When I got home, Sabrina was waiting in the kitchen, and somehow she already knew. You called a lawyer. Not a question. Yeah. Her face changed immediately. Not anger this time. Fear. Real fear. You're seriously doing this? You said maybe we should divorce. You know I didn't mean it like this. I looked at her carefully. That's the problem, Sabrina. What does that mean? It means you used divorce so many times to control arguments. I said quietly. You never noticed I slowly stopped being afraid of it. Her eyes watered almost instantly. That's not fair. No, I replied. What's not fair is spending years feeling like our marriage became unstable every time I disagreed with you. I was trying to make you fight for us. I did fight for us. That came out sharper than I intended. For years. She started crying then, and somehow that almost made it harder. Because for the first time in a long time, I think she finally understood what she'd actually been doing to us. For the next couple weeks, our house felt like a place waiting for weather to arrive. Sabrina stopped making the divorce comments completely. Ironically, the moment she finally stopped using the word was the moment it became real. She tried talking more, tried sitting next to me again, tried asking about my day, tried touching my arm during conversations like physical contact could bridge emotional distance retroactively. And honestly, part of me hated how much I still wanted that version of her. One night she found me in the garage changing the oil on the bike. Normally she mocked the garage smell. This time she just stood there quietly. You really love this thing, huh? I looked up. It's not really about the motorcycle. I know. That surprised me. She stepped closer slowly. I think I made everything feel conditional. I wiped my hands with a rag. That's a pretty accurate summary. She nodded sadly. I thought if you were scared to lose me, you'd fight harder for the marriage. I leaned back against the workbench. And instead, I made home feel stressful. That was probably the most honest conversation we'd had in years. No sarcasm, no escalation, no emotional traps, just truth. And somehow that made it more painful. Because now I could finally see the marriage we probably could have had if we'd talked like this earlier. She looked at me carefully. "Do you still love me?" That question nearly ruined me, because the answer was yes. That was the tragedy. Love wasn't the thing that died first. Exhaustion got there earlier. "I do," I admitted quietly. Tears filled her eyes again. "Then why does this feel over?" I looked down at the wrench in my hand for a second, then answered honestly, "Because I think I spent too many years feeling emotionally unsafe in my own marriage." She covered her mouth immediately, like the sentence physically hurt to hear. Good, maybe it should have, not to punish her, just because some truths deserve their full weight. A few days later we met with mediators. Two exhausted adults sitting under fluorescent lights discussing who keeps what. At one point, the mediator asked, "Who keeps the motorcycle?" Sabrina gave a small, sad laugh. "Definitely him." First time that subject had ever come up without tension attached to it. Funny timing. When we signed the preliminary agreement, Sabrina suddenly looked at me and asked, "Do you hate me?" That one hurt. Because despite everything, no, I didn't. "I think we loved each other the wrong way for too long," I said. She cried quietly after that, and I almost did too. About a week before the final paperwork, I took the motorcycle out early in the morning. No destination, just road, cold air, empty streets, engine noise, the kind of silence that lets your brain finally speak without interruption. I stopped at a gas station outside town around sunrise and bought the worst coffee legally available in North America. Then I sat on the curb beside the bike, staring at absolutely nothing. And that's when the terrifying realization finally hit me. I didn't actually want a life without Sabrina. I wanted a life where loving her didn't feel like emotional survival training. When I got home, Sabrina was in the kitchen. She looked exhausted too, like she hadn't really slept in weeks. Honestly, neither had I. She looked up nervously when I walked in. That hurt to see. I took my jacket off slowly, then said, "I don't know if we can fix this." Her face fell instantly. "But," that word changed the whole room. "I don't know if I'm ready to give up either." Sabrina stared at me like she was afraid to react too fast and scare the moment away. "You mean that?" "I mean," I exhaled slowly. "I think we owe it to ourselves to at least try properly before we sign papers that end 14 years of our lives." Tears filled her eyes immediately. "I know I messed this up," she whispered. "We both did." "No," she said quietly. "I kept using divorce like it was a way to win arguments." That was probably the most important sentence she ever said in our marriage. I leaned against the counter. "If we do this, things change. No more threatening the relationship every time we disagree. No more treating compromise like losing." Another nod. "And Sabrina," I said carefully, "I need to feel respected again. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." Over the next few months we started therapy. Therapy wasn't magic. There were still arguments, still bad days, still moments where old instincts came back. But something fundamental changed after the divorce became real. We stopped treating the relationship like a weapon, and slowly, very slowly, home started feeling peaceful again, not perfect, real. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.